transformation, because there is no digital transformation without technology driving that transformation. So what I see is that in the industry, business makes some sort of digital decision, and IT come and try to fit with that strategy. I think IT should brought it to the table, and they should be allowed to co-create the digital strategy in a way. I mean, our earlier question of the pace at which we are transforming today, whatever decisions we make today, in 6 months that will become obsolete. So if IT is not on the table to be a partner to drive that change at the same pace that the industry is evolving, IT should be an equal, what we call it as two-in-a-box partner to drive that change. That's how I see it.
Bill, you and I have been contemporaries. We've seen this, heard this story back since business process reengineering, right? IT was going to drive strategy. Has that time finally arrived?
Well, it's funny you say that in a way. I mean, I don't know whether you disagree. It almost the way the cloud evolved. It was almost another one of the sort of not anti-IT, but caught IT somewhat on its heels, right? And business was taking the lead. But now I think IT's done a great job of catching up, and I agree with what you said, Baiju, that IT needs to play that role of a enabler, a true partner, right, with the business. And I guess, looking forward, that will extend into a new realm of fungibility of business process enablement, like using cloud native technologies to create solutions rapidly. To some extent, and I've heard this argument raised, it wasn't my original argument, that it's even faster to build the new than it is to renovate the old. And so in that way, I think maybe you're onto something and you're suggesting maybe this will be the true halcyon days of business process reengineering, albeit by a different name.
How about the role of external partners? How important should you try to do it all yourself, or is it critical to use external partners when moving to help drive your cloud strategy? Baiju, I'm going to start with you on that.
I think it's very important to have an external partner in this journey, because most of the traditional organization, even the internal skills and capability and application knowledge, application awareness, cloud awareness is still building up in this day and age. So it's very crucial to have an SI partner helping you with defining your security strategy, defining your architecture strategy, defining your cloud migration strategy, defining your factory approach, because the centralized governance factory approach, how to take a non-cloud application to a cloud. So the SI partners bring a lot of value to that game. I think historically, a lot of times we look into SI partners as cost view. But in this journey, there's a value proposition they are bringing into it, which is going to accelerate us to get there faster. Then even to a granular level, the tools and capabilities they bring into it, because in a way, they can easily come in and build a factory with the tools that's available, or they custom build tools. And we use Cognizant to in our journey, and it kind of helps us in accelerate it. And definitely there's a cost angle, there's a cost optimization angle, but the speed at which we want to transform, the SIs has got a very critical key role to play in it. And a lot of them are ready and actively playing that role.
As one of the leading cloud partners, I'm going to assume that you believe your role is important, but turn the question a little bit and say, where do you think you add the most value to a customer's cloud journey?
Sure. Actually, cloud is a catalyst for the digital transformation, right? And it's not a one-off event or one-off activity that we can do with our customers. It's important that we actually become the part of the digital transformation journey for our customers. So hence, I would look at our role as moving from a very tactical project support. It's not just about coming and helping in a migration work or helping in architecture work. How can we actually partner throughout the journey, right? Because the cloud journey is going to take at least 2 years to reach, the earlier polling results of 50 to 75% benefit, right? And if that's the kind of timeline that we're looking for most of the customers to sort of get the benefit back, then we need to be with the customer throughout the journey. And it goes through different evolution within the journey, whether it's the economics value chain, whether it's architecture, modernization, or enabling the digital capabilities like AI, machine learning, data, and so on. So that's how we look at it. I think there is a new role that's emerging for most of the service providers of moving from what I used to call as a traditional outsourcing partner to more of a cloud partners, right? So that we are part of the journey as we go along.
Let's turn back to hybrid cloud. And Bill, for your report, when you're doing the research for your report, what did you find? Those companies that move decisively and quickly to a hybrid cloud strategy, what are the major payoffs they're seeing?
You know, it's interesting that, and it kind of reflects something that you said, Baiju, that is, ironically, and it was true of public cloud as well, but public cloud, hybrid cloud, you ask them what the top benefit is and what the top concern is, and it's the same, it's security. So I think that companies that have embarked, it's somewhat paradoxical given that you would think that the hybrid cloud would have at least potential issues. Yeah. And I think, to be honest with you, we've been through an era, the period of initial cloud implementation, particularly in banks, I'm sure, but you must have experienced this, that the initial instinct was to do it yourself, right? In a private cloud kind of setting. And now I think as we've moved into a hybrid cloud world, we're kind of getting a reappraisal of the extremes that we saw. On the one hand, everything we need to have in-house, or alternatively, there were people that were saying everything needs to be in the public cloud. And now I think we've come to a reconsideration of that formula. And I think that's one of the benefits that really the maturation of hybrid cloud has brought.
What have you seen at Comerica?
I think we all talked about business values and transformational values and digital transformation, pace, and we talked about everything. But I think one area we have not addressed very effectively is operational success, because especially when you get into a regulated industry, availability, finite availability, and plus DR, what we call return to production. We can go from one data center to another data center, leave there seamlessly for 3 weeks and come back. With the true cost optimization, cloud is giving you that operational availability with proper operational metrics and monitoring and tracking. So in other words, the true end customers are reaping the benefit of the application availability. So we always call my application is available 99.9%. It's a good number to hear. But if you truly peel that onion back, was that application was available when you want to use them? You can make the same in a traditional environment, but think about the investment you need to make it as a true 5.9 or 4.9 availability. I think the operational piece is one of the key drivers for us as a bank, as a bank that's out there where people are using across the world at different time zones. So that's another aspect we need to that's where one of the biggest value we are also getting.
I do want to follow up on that though, because cost is an issue that is often asked about. Are you saving money with the cloud approach versus doing it all on-prem? Any opinion on that?
I think it is, again, coming back to the governance structure. We can spend the same amount of money if you create your cloud environment as a Wild West, where nobody has a control. Then that's what early adopters saw, because they couldn't reap any savings, because your cloud available, go make it run. So if you run it through a guardrail, centralized governance structure, like I said, a composite group of team managing that, definitely, I have first-hand experience last 2 years. Our hosting operating cost has gone down purely from an application hosting, data center hosting perspective.
Fantastic. Baiju, your perspective on this, where's the hybrid cloud payoff?
The payoff, it's more like the multiplication factor, right? So there are certain usages of cloud which gives you, let's say, 0.25x of the spend that you do. But as you move up the services into the catalogs model, and you start provisioning as a stack of services to your customers, and if you also push the SI partners to actually give you a stack of services on the cloud, your ability to actually get the benefit multiplies that by that much, right? Rather than, you can't have a cloud foundation, but you still buy rest of the things in a discrete way. So one is having a catalog, and then making sure that the partners who are working with you in the ecosystem are also giving you services as a catalog services, as a stack of services. That's where I think the hybrid cloud benefit, gets maximized when you start consuming as a stack of service.
I've got a question from our audience in regards to use of APIs, application program interfaces, which of course is an exploding area in the last few years. How can companies leverage APIs to accelerate the pace and quantity of application development? Now, Bill, you were talking about this earlier. How are you seeing APIs being leveraged most strategically?
Well, I mean, it's becoming, I guess, arguably the glue that enables us to pursue this whole what's the word I'm seeking? Microservices-based composite application scenarios. So it's got an absolutely critical role to play, as well as in, I guess you could say, assembling the components of the kind of prefabricated components I was referring to earlier. So, I mean, the convergence or movement toward microservices has become almost, shouldn't say almost, but it's become quite popular among our client base, as are containers and other advanced software engineering constructs. So it's clearly one of the things that people need to learn to really thrive in this environment.
And Baiju, maybe abstracting that question a little bit higher, how has your adoption of cloud changed the way you build applications?
I think we are moved into a container-based, microservices-based economy now. I mean, gone are the days of the monolith, huge application. So I think it is enabling us. In fact, at the end of the day, if you go to the phantom assembly-based microservices approach, that is what is driving us to speed up our deployments and development. It has been a big part of our ecosystem. Plus, I mean, almost all these services can be deployed to any cloud, agnostic to which cloud it is being used, or any PaaS, agnostic which PaaS it is used. And it is kind of rapidly changing the way we deploy and manage and service our applications big time. And it has got a critical role to play. And some people say it's an old genie in a new bottle. It is not. It is different. And it's again how you manage it effectively, and you should use this to thrive your development. I don't use the word thrive your developments.
And for our audience members who may not be familiar, containers are these portable, self-contained environments that include the application and its dependent components that can be moved easily from cloud to cloud. Venu, so your perspective on this, the way software development is changing.
Yeah, the one is on the cloud native development, Baiju spoke about it. There is also another opportunity which I just want to add as an additional comment is that, how do you actually modernize your existing applications, right? One is if you just do a lift and shift onto the cloud, it doesn't give you a significant benefit. So you might also have to look at opportunities. How do you bring DevOps controls into the existing applications? How do you bring more security controls into existing applications so that it matches up to the cloud standards, if I may say? And how do you enhance it CI/CD kind of culture in the enhancements that you do on the legacy applications and so on? So that's where I think some of this API-based strategy also needs to cover, in terms of span, the existing applications as well. So you'll have to categorize certain applications which you will make them cloud ready if they are not cloud native, but at least it should have the attributes of cloud ready. So hence the API-led strategy actually helps to accelerate, gets the space to the modernization, and it also helps you to get the velocity of how many applications you can actually make it cloud ready.
One of the big trends we've seen in the last year has been multi-cloud. Organizations wanting to use multiple public cloud platforms. Could be a recipe for some complexity, but also gives you some agility as well. What are you seeing? We'll go down the line here, starting with Bill. Are best practices of customers who are adopting multi-cloud really doing it in a smart way?
Well, I think that people, if you ask them, and I know our data shows this, that most people are using more than two, or at least certainly more than one public cloud environment, but that doesn't mean they're doing it in a deterministic or a similar way, right? It could be somewhat organic and spreading up in different places. So I think, companies, what they are seeking to do is to maintain, I think, an awareness and consistent governance, as you laid it out. But at the same time, being aware of the trade-offs, right? Of let's say going down the path of using different clouds in a at least semi-interchangeable way, versus the benefits that they can achieve in terms of functions and in working with a single cloud environment, right? And I think that's a trade-off as we move down these, the road towards prefabricated hybrid cloud solutions. Companies are going to need to be aware of those trade-offs. And I think the same is true, also from a contractual and governance, standpoint from that perspective, that people understand that, they're going to be in a position to gain maybe a certain level of economic advantage in the form of discounts, and be aware of, again, the trade-offs that they may be surrendering versus the benefit they may be getting by the multiple cloud use.
Your experience is using multiple cloud vendors worth the aggravation, if you will?
I don't think it's an aggravation. I think I go back to my earlier comment about application inventory. Not all clouds are built equal. So certain applications fit well within Amazon. Certain applications fit well within your Azure. So this is where your governance, your strategy, your pattern development is very crucial. So it is not about whether we need to have multi-cloud, but I can say from my experience, it's a multi-cloud approach is the right approach, where in which you may have a private cloud where in which certain applications not ready for Amazon, Google, or Azure. And there are some applications run perfectly fine in Amazon environment because Amazon may be providing you a separate kind of services. And there are certain applications perfect fit for the Azure environment because it runs natively there. So that is how I would like to answer it. But again, coming back to that, the consternation you talked about, it's all again based on, that's why I talked about bottoms up approach. How do you build your governance structure? That's the most crucial. What's a guardrail you're using it? You should not have differing security standards or governance structure or application migration structure or pattern based on a cloud provider. It has to be one unified view. That's a way to manage it.
As we move into our final questions for our panel, I want to remind you in the minutes we have remaining in this webinar, if you have any questions, now is the time to get them in. And what do you know? We have a new question that just popped up. How do you strike the right balance between pushing for change and implementing new solutions in an organization while also taking time to do it the right way and not just implementing workarounds that bring quick wins? Vin, I'll ask you to start on that one.
Yeah, great question. That's where I think it starts with sort of aligning the expectations in terms of what do you expect from the cloud transformation journey. If we answer the question, upfront in terms of what does business expects, what does IT expects, what does our finance team, needs as part of it, then it sort of gives you an answer probably in more than one way in terms of, look, how can you actually address the business objective, technology, as well as the finance objectives. And then you sequence the journey of cloud transformation in different phases. And I believe that within that phased approach, there are going to be a long-term progress in terms of, look, how do you modernize applications? You can't do it overnight. You need to have a mid-term and long-term strategy to it to get the benefit of that. And then there are solutions where probably you can do a quick fix in a positive way, in a positive connotation. You can actually do that. There are applications where you can just do a lift and shift and still get the benefit of that, right? So that's the the second way of doing it. And then the third one, which I actually say that, look, while this is one dimensional in terms of how do you actually modernize what you have, you also need to enforce an innovation culture. You also need to develop a culture saying that, let's not build another legacy in 4 years' time in a different environment. So how do you actually build the systems and applications which are going to be more relevant in the digital context? So there is a modernization mandate and there's an innovation mandate. And that's how I would say that you should start defining your expectations and how the programs sequence against these two.
Let's ask about the role of quick wins, because we often hear that the way to introduce change to an organization is to look for quick wins. Is that true when it comes to cloud?
There is no quick wins. Let me make it very clear. There's no quick wins. If you don't, that's what happened with this industry. We went for quick wins, then turn around, cloud got a bad name. We didn't think through. I agree with everything, every word Venu said. That's the only way to approach this. There are no quick wins. You can re-platform, you can re-architect, then you can come and build all of your new capability in a cloud native way. That's the only way to get there. If you go for quick wins, cloud is not the environment. Might as well do it on-prem. That's my view of it.
Bill, your thoughts?
That's kind of an extreme view. I don't disagree with it though, but it's like the questioner seems to kind of indicate there's a dichotomy between real quick wins and phony quick wins, right? And I would certainly agree with you there that a mere a pointless workaround. But on the other hand, you really don't want to leave all your hardest problems and take them first. You know what I mean? Because maybe then you'll never get there. And let's face it, people, they don't have infinite patience for the realization of results. All we hear about every day is speed. So it's a difficult balance to strike. But I'm sensitive to your view, Baiju. I think you're right. But to some extent, there's got to be a balance. You just can't wait forever to show something, right? That leads the way forward. And I think this is really an opportunity for, we talked about the top down, right? Maybe it's an opportunity, maybe not top down governance, but certainly leadership, right? To set the right tone, in terms of change and to be open to it, right? If not, of course, not micromanaging.
I think when I look into quick wins, not the way, maybe that's how I read it. When I look at quick wins, what I look into it, to build the confidence within the organization, not for return on investment. To build the skill capability, to go through that process and learn and fix your mistakes. That's how you should look into quick wins in a cloud journey, not from an ROI perspective.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to have someone at the top saying, "This is what we're going to do. This is we're going all in on cloud. We're going to be 80% of our applications will be on cloud in 5 years." And do you need that kind of certainty at the top?
100%.
Yeah.
Without that, especially a regulated industry where I'm coming from, that is the biggest piece of the puzzle. And that if you don't have that, then we're all human beings. We're all used to certain ways of doing things. We will never get out of it. That mandate has to come from top. The top has to believe in it. They have to trust in it. It's a change moment for the organization. It's a change moment for the people. So there will be ups and downs. They need to stick to their philosophy on that. If the organization stick to that, I'm pretty sure we'll be all collectively successful in that journey.
We're almost out of time. I'm going to give each of our panelists 1 minute. Imagine that you're in the audience of this webinar and you're just about to get started on your cloud journey and you're wondering what are the most important critical success factors. What's one critical success factor that if you had only one piece of advice to give those people, what would it be? Bennu, starting with you.
I would say very effective governance model, right from concept to execution strategy.
And I agree that when I'm a big believer in governance, you heard in my multiple answers. But second one, know your applications.
Know your applications.
Inside out. Because the problem is that some of this application has been in the industry for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. We don't even know how this application sits in our environment, how it interacts with other environments, other applications. So one of the crucial pieces, governance is the first thing. Second is know your application, know your application, know your application. If you don't know your application, you will fail miserably to your journey. You will break everything. Know your applications.
Bill?
I would say consensus, or as close as you can get to consensus as to why you're doing it, what do you expect to get out of it, and how you're going to know when you get the benefit that you're expecting, right? Because I feel that there are, people say, well, it's cheaper, and then they say, well, maybe not. It's more flexible, and it's like, well, how do I measure that, right? And so just understand, what it is you're going for to the extent that you can, and that's my key.
We are out of time. If a question hits you just as we end this webinar, I want to remind you this will be available as an on-demand webinar. You can continue to ask questions, as well as contact information for our panelists is available in your console. So we want this to be very two-way even after this hour ends. With that, I want to thank Bill, Bennu, and Baiju for being so generous with their time and their wisdom today. I also want to thank you for joining and participating with us. Remember, you can download any of the assets from the additional resources box and post questions at any time, even if you're watching on demand. We'll still answer them once we see them. For Cognizant, this is Paul Gillen, thanking you for joining us and wishing you success.